Hey guys, this is Kirop speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to take a look at what more things are coming to the Lite campaign in patch number 7 for the Lite Campaign V3 that is going to come to you pretty soon. We are just adding the finishing touches to some of the polish that we have been doing, and well, I'm going to show you some of the important changes that will make your campaign life a lot easier and, well, just in general, the game more playable. So, there are a few changes in there which will raise an eyebrow or two, but no, nothing bad. We haven't gotten rid of the engine designer, no worries. But it has a different color now. Or am I saying too much? So, yes, let's take a look. I've just made a project here, the Farker, and a family premium and family utility in there, and let's have a quick look at them. Edit the project. I have completed it but not signed it off yet, and you can already see a few changes in here. Let's head over to the project management. We have our two trims, and for some reason it didn't save the names of them. Well, that's a bug, but anyway, I want to show you some of the new design stuff which we have been changing to make it more clear what you're doing. Alright, right away you can spot some splashes of color that weren't there before. So, we have decided to make everything that is engine related blue and everything that is car related red, like our standard UI red. And these are all engine related things. This, of course, is the model designer. Well, it's just car related, it's red. We have 3 tabs for the engine stuff, and I'm going to get to them very soon. And then, of course, we have the trim designer, which also is car related. And now we are in the engine section. And as you see here, we have still those 3 panels where the buttons deactivate when, of course, there's nothing to choose there, and the new engine project stuff should be the last option, the last resort option. I've already made an engine, so I would be able to select and clone things and so on, but this panel will be everywhere, also in Sandbox, and that is because so many people over the course of the years have been asking us, but how do you put an existing engine into a car? Well, you did in Sandbox, you do via the little icon on top, and so of course you do in the trim designer, but this page is now very obvious. Like, okay, this is the currently installed engine, and then you can pick and choose, and that gets you to the engine manager where you can pick an engine or clone an engine or just make a new one. Alright, family designer, look, it's all blue. Yeah, some of you may be, oh, I don't like it, it's blue. Well, we'll let it sink in for a moment. It's quite nice. I like it. After a while, it was very strange at first. After seeing automation for how many years? How many years with this kind of UI? Like 4, 5? All in red, and now this is blue. But this comes really in handy. Not necessarily here where it's reasonably obvious. Well, I'm changing engine parts. Of course, I'm in the engine. But when it comes to factories and so on, there it is less obvious. So we're in the family designer, heading over to the trim designer. Everything is kept in nice and shiny blue, and also comparing engines and so on. So that is all dandy. And now if we head over to the car, of course everything is red again. Yes, but so much for that, and we head over to where it really starts to matter, where things were awesomely confusing. So in the factory manager, in this factory, the first one you set up is for the car. Well, the car factory is red. Simple enough. Alright, let's head back. If you head over to the engine factory, however, which was a tangled mess, so that's an engine panel, it's only about engines. So here we have gone to the engine project, the banger i4 2.2, and of course everything is blue. Also, because these pages look so similar, it is nice and clear that as soon as you see blue, you know, okay, I'm in the engine. I'm not modifying the car right now, it's just the engine that might be used in the car. In this case, yes, they are being used in this car, as you are coming from there. So in the factory management, where you have to edit your factories, also the engine factories are blue. So it's much easier to find out where you are at the moment looking at the UI. You instantly see, okay, this must be the engine. And because of how similar all these settings are, of course, that makes sense to differentiate in another way. And we hope that this overall will make things a little bit clearer. A page that has up to this point been pretty empty was the sign-off page for the engine project. And we have now added a lot more controls and checks to this, so that you can make more informed or better informed decisions, because there's more than one to do. So as I described last time, we have the production matching going on, and that does take into account other engine projects. It's not just this one, but there would be several lines in here for if you have more than one engine project going on, or more than one car project that uses the engine rather. Also, you might be thinking like, okay, why you have all the stats for the costs in here? Yes, and that is because of how automation deals with this, making it compatible for future features like an engine market where you buy and sell engines, but also more importantly to unblack box the black box. And that is what's going on is that the engines you produce are being sold to yourself at a certain rate, and they are then installed in the car, taking that value or that price into account for pricing the car. So for instance, you should be able to say like, okay, I'm going to sell the engine to myself at $1,500, considering the factory costs. Like, oh, we have to pay off the factory cost within X number of years. Here X is equal to 3. Or maybe in 5 years. You can see the price drop at that point, and that is exactly the price difference there. So you can either say like, okay, no, this is a future investment, I don't really care about this, I only care about the factory tooling and the engineering costs for this engine project and the loan costs. And yes, the loan costs are being considered. Last time I showed you that they weren't updating, but you can also toggle them on and off, and the same thing is true for the car. So right now we've chosen to have this engine. Here you see now the name of the engine and the price, and that's also true for the car panel, the equivalent, where you now see the trim and the price. And we are going to sell these engines at the rate of $1,000. And we sign that one off and head over to the car. And this looks so weird with the engine sticking out there, being blue. And oh, look at that, new stuff. Yes, forecaster screen. I have not changed any campaign settings for marketing and dealerships and so on, so this is basically what you're going to see, but I've chosen a pretty big market, that's the family premium and family utility, so there's plenty of cash sloshing around and big demographics at that in Gazmir. Same thing here for the car, and yes, we are in the car because everything here is red, all the buttons and stuff. Also you have profit sales graphs, which don't make much sense in the engine because you don't sell them individually just yet. But as always, you can select your minimum shifts, your target shifts, and so on. And this thing is new, and this shows you how much cost of the whole thing is the car versus the engine, as a little bar chart. You can see that for the family utility version, the engine is a slightly larger percentage of that cost. And that is because the car itself is cheaper, while the engine still costs the same. Also, we have some nice coloring going on here. It looks like this project is rather profitable, as it's all colored green. But you can see the shifts decline, and that is linked to your minimum shifts. If you set them to higher numbers, then it tells you, oh yeah, that's also good. This graph now also shows you, oh no, you're making loss. Oh, isn't that fancy? So now you can see how profitable your project is. Everything above that dashed line is actual profit. Isn't that nice? If these parameters are correct, of course. But these competitiveness numbers, that seems to be rather realistic. And The same, of course, goes for here. You can toggle on and off. Do you want to include the factory costs or not? And that would include another markup of $1,000 if you select the 5-year payoff. If you sell your cars for 5 years at these shift numbers and you sell every single car, then you will more than break even in that case. You know, break even point right now would be there. As you see, we go from the negatives into the positives. But this, even at zero margin, this means that you are making a profit. It just says that, okay, if we sell them at our 0% margin level, then in 5 years we're going to break even. But because there's higher demand here, you're going to break even earlier. So you can influence, as always, that's nothing new, you can always influence your markups here. And you see the 0 markup sales price over there, and you can also add a minimum margin if you so want. That will override any setting for the AI for the lower end at least. So at least you will have them sold at that margin. And there you have the equivalent page that I just talked about for the engine. You have the engine production load graph. You have your numbers for how long your engineering takes versus factory construction, and your settings for the forecaster and your profit numbers, as well as your beautifully designed trims with their sales price down there. Another good change I want to show you is more direct feedback in the setup of the factory. So what we now have here is showing you the trims produced in this factory. That has been the case before, I believe, but the equivalent is true in the engineering. So now you see that when you're moving the slider, we've updated the logic for it, that your trims are being produced at more or less factory efficiency. If you over-automate a factory, it drops in efficiency, but still, of course, uses less man-hours. But yeah, it's not optimal in that sense. It depends, of course, on how the wages are looking in the country you're building. In Gazmir, you usually want to be at a slightly higher automation level, higher than the factory efficiency would allow for, just slightly, because man-hours are pretty expensive. Here you always see the man-hours, production units, because it's 1 man-hour is not 1 man-hour. It produces, depending on how good your factory is, 1 man-hour is worth more or less production units. So instead, of course, you have the metric of production, cost per production unit, which is quite important. So now when we are in the equivalent engineering screen, so we've just set up our factory, you see more information here. We've thrown out the engineers for now. Of course, they're coming back in Lite Campaign V4, but on a different panel and in a different way. But here you now see accurate numbers for how long the factory is going to take. Good measure to have right there, because you're setting up your engineering time here to be potentially longer than that number. Very easy on your first factory, which you're upgrading. But you get an accurate number of cars, you get the factory efficiency, you have the material costs, and you have the labor costs. And the material costs plus the labor costs is the production cost of a car in there. And that is the average trim cost in there. Of course, that doesn't have any markups whatsoever, and that is all added later on in the forecaster and sign-off screen. So if we are now changing sliders here, you get direct feedback for what is going on. If we increase the automation level, or the tooling automation of the engineering, you can see that, our labor costs are going down. Material costs don't change. Well, that makes sense. So, but the car overall does get cheaper. And also, we're producing more cars. Now, that's a good direct feedback for what's going on. And now, finally, with the market tab being available everywhere, you can also have a quick look. Man, are we maybe producing a few too many cars? And that is limit to awareness, yes. And go to demographic sizes. Yeah, that looks like a few too many. But we are going to upgrade our dealerships, and our awareness is going to go up. So, yeah, don't be overly concerned about that. We do want to make it such that this can also forecast what it would be once this project hits the market. That would be something for the sign-off screen, or rather forecaster screen. And now finally, you also see what the process slider does, because it also changes some numbers. So this is, do we really need to change these two? This is this is wasteful, and this is like optimized. It's just about material costs, more or less. Slight effect on the production efficiency too, because just being very sloppy with the materials sure makes things faster, but also more expensive. So you can see that that has a significant effect on the price of the car through the material costs. But it does speed things up if you pull that slider down. You produce more and it costs you less time. So overall, these parameters are much more linked into the UI, and you get direct feedback for what is happening. I think that will clear a few things up for people, despite there not being any tooltips yet or actual descriptions. And that needs to be added as well. We have also continued to do a few more things on the graphs. For instance, we do have the oversteer-understeer graph now, the way we want, with thinner lines delineating the oversteer and understeer sectors. And well, I'm just writing it out, what it means. If the yellow line is in this sector, it is oversteering behavior, and oversteering steering behavior, and understeering steering behavior down there. So that makes things a lot clearer. Also, we are going to do the same thing for like the wheel spin, where we can mark, for instance, this area would be red or red shaded, because that is where you have wheel spin. Another cool thing, I don't know if I've shown you that one yet, maybe I have, is the research and development screen. We have added a few more items to the top here, and just visually it's a lot more appealing. Now you can see how far forwards you are in the tech. I think that was the case before as well, but now we have the sections of blue engine stuff and of course the red car stuff, where you see exactly what is there. Weird thing that we need to figure out, all of these have tooltips in our dev version, but when I'm doing this here on Steam in this version, they don't. So that's a shame. We need to find out what's going on. But everything else in here does have tooltips. And so lab costs, research costs, and the total of them, that is what you're actually paying. And this is how you get to that number. And you now also see the research costs per month. That is just the equivalent of this. The lab costs are added on top of that, and the average car and engine tech being shown there. Some more info in the top bar here too. I don't know if that was the case before as well, since the last Little F update. I can repeat it. This is quite handy. See what your current cash is and the cash flow on top of that. And this project is making 12.5 million at this moment, with a 32 and 26% markup. It's looking good. Let's take a quick look at the markets. No, that's the wrong tab, Gerald. Here. And there is a new market info mode that has been added just recently, and that is your overall company competitiveness in all the sectors. All the sectors of the equivalent countries you can select and deselect. So that is your best trim, and as you can see, it is, well, currently the readout of the top 3 average isn't working for some reason, but you will see the average stats of the top 3 competitors, and then next to it your stats and your highest scoring trim. That is your highest scoring trim that is being compared to those, and the name of it too. So you have a complete overview of the market, what your competitive numbers are in each segment, in each country. Very, very handy. And that should give you more of an idea of what you're doing, where you still have some holes in your competitiveness. For instance, luxury premium. Yeah, and that is just one more tool to give you that will help you make some better decisions in the game. One last quick thing I want to mention is on the new game screen. We are currently working on that to make that a bit more better, and that is we're going to have a simple mode and an advanced mode. This is full work in progress, and we have a randomized company name thing, which is pretty cool. What? Shifted on Stour Heavy Industries. Nottinghamshire Industries. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Shire Holdings. Nishat Group, okay. That will be used for your competitor names as well. So you will be seeing some odd names in there. Oh, that's a good one. Hope Auto Group. Yeah, that's basically my campaign play summarized there. I'm playing on insane difficulty. Hope Auto Group. Anyway, you have some settings here, and there will be a third tab for the engineers once they're back, and that should decramp everything just a little. Should be better. Anyway, that is all I wanted to show you for today. I hope you enjoyed, and of course this patch is coming rather soon. A few finishing touches. We're talking about weeks, probably, hopefully less than 2. Yeah, less than 2 weeks. And that should go into open beta. So, hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.